Good evening. This is BelGeode, and we are back with some more X-Plane 11 in virtual reality. Howdy, folks, and we are back here in X-Plane 11. And yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. We got derailed by Microsoft Flight Simulator, which, don't get me wrong, I'm still dedicated to doing that series, but I don't want to forget my X-Plane peeps because let's face it, when it comes to flight models, X-Plane is still king. X-Plane is still king. No offense to Microsoft and Asobo. I know you've done an excellent job, but when it comes to strange creations such as this, you're not quite ready yet. So, what are we going to be showing off tonight? Well, first and foremost, we're back in the Seychelles, and we are in Praslin, as we were the last time when we showed off an aircraft here in X-Plane. And we're going to be flying to another island called Fregate Island, I believe. Maybe it's Frigate Island. I don't even know. I don't know if it's French or if it's supposed to be English. It's probably supposed to be French. I didn't see any accents on it, so I'm just going to call it Frigate Island. We'll just leave it at that. All right, so what are we going to show off today? We have this bad baby right here. This is the VSkyLabs rendition of the new Fraundorfer, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, Tensor 600X. Now, what exactly is this monstrosity that we're looking at here? This is an autogyro. Let's get a closer look here. So, what is an autogyro? An autogyro basically means that we've got a propeller in the back. It's a pusher prop, of course, and we also have a rotor on top. And according to all the information I've been able to glean from this, it looks like it's a fixed rotor system. I could be wrong, unless the center hub there actually has ways that you can pitch the rotor blades, but it looks like the blades themselves are kind of fixed to the hub. Now, there's technically no power to this main rotor. So what you do is you kind of transfer some of the power from the main power plant for that pusher prop, and it pre-rotates this rotor blade that we're looking at here to get it pretty much up to speed, pardon the pun. Once we get up to speed, we're actually going to use that rotor as our wing. So typical, rotary wing type stuff, just like any other helicopter or VTOL aircraft. This is how we're going to be generating our lift, is through this rotary wing. However, it is important to note that under normal flying circumstances, there is no power going to this. This is just plain old physics that's keeping us aloft. And it's a pretty unique idea that's been around since almost the dawn of aviation, really. There have been a lot of people that have come up with autogyros throughout the years. Over, I guess, the last 100 years is probably the best way to look at it. But this is Germany's newest addition to the autogyro scenery. And honestly, it's kind of weird looking, but I love it. That's the thing with VSkyLabs products. They specialize in the unusual, the unique. And really, that's where my heart is. I love this kind of stuff. This is this kind of stuff that you won't see every day. It's just so quirky and so weird that I can't help but love it. So we're going to fly this bad boy here. And I know a couple of people have reviewed this thing, and it's kind of difficult to officially review something like this because it's brand spanking new. It just had its real life maiden flight this year, 2020. So there's not a lot of hard facts on, the history of this aircraft. There's a lot of theory crafting and so on. And if you go to their website, the Fraundorfer website, you'll actually see a lot of technical aspects about this aircraft that have been recorded on that site. But it's still brand spanking new. There's still a lot to learn about this thing. Well, one thing I can tell you is I do know that VSkyLabs has put a lot of effort into this. So pretty much scanning all the numbers and so on and so forth to try and get this thing to be modeled properly in X-Plane. And as I stated earlier, X-Plane, when it comes to flight models, is still king. If you have something unusual, you're probably going to want to bring it to X-Plane to make sure that it will fly before you test it out in pretty much any other sim, let alone real life. And typically, that's what the creator of X-Plane does, Austin Meyer. Whenever he has some kind of experimental aircraft that he would like to work on in the real world, he brings it to this simulator to test it out. So what we may lack in Microsoft Flight Simulator beauty, we certainly do make up for in Flight Model. All right, but let's hop in. I will get you acquainted with the aircraft, and we're going to go for a short flight to Fregate Island. And of course, we've got our lovely co-pilot, Georgette, with us. Incidentally, Georgette is activated by weight. So in the weight and payload section of the aircraft selection screen, if you add, I believe it's more than 100 or maybe 150 pounds thereabouts. Georgette doesn't look like she weighs much, but she will appear in the back. You can also turn her off by clicking on the seat itself. However, we kind of want to have Georgette there because she's just so stinking cute. All right, I'll stop now. That was cringy. All right, let's hop into the aircraft. And just to remind you, I am in the Oculus Rift, the Rift S to be precise. So we've got our nifty little touch controller here. We'll go ahead and close this. All right, there we go. All right, now I'm thinking I remember how to get this thing started. However, if I don't, you will find out soon enough. One thing I noticed, I don't see Avatab in this. Usually VSkyLabs will put Avatab in this somewhere, but I haven't found it. I know it's not this because when I click on this, it'll get rid of that. But I haven't quite found the click spot for Avatab just yet. It's not the Fraundorfer logo, so that's it. All right, but as always, I'm going to take you through a full cold and dark startup. So let's go ahead and get that done here, and I'll explain everything as I go along. So first thing we want is our power. That's, of course, our battery. And the next thing we're going to want is fuel. So we'll put it to the up position. Just check our throttle here. Now, please note, this is not exactly a collective. Like if you look at the rotor blade, you will notice the rotor blade is not changing pitch. So it's not a collective the same way as you would find in a normal helicopter. It's more of a throttle, and it's designed basically to control that pusher prop behind us. All right, let's continue our startup here. So we'll get our ignition on. We need both ignition switches on. And we are going to be hitting start in a moment, but let me get our nav lights on. We also need to make sure our parking brakes are on, which they are, and we need to make sure our rotor brake is off for flight. That's pretty important. This thing will not start unless you have the rotor brake off. Okay, but we're just about ready for a startup, so we'll go clear prop. And there we go, like magic. We are on. You will notice it is a little bit loud, so what we can do is close our door. And in typical VSkyLabs fashion, it does attenuate the sound. It's those little things that I enjoy. If you caught the last Microsoft Flight Simulator video that I put up just before this one, you'll notice that I made mention of that with the Coronado aircraft that I was using. That's the kind of stuff that I like to see developers do. The volume should change when you close and open the doors. Okay, but now that we've got everything started, let's hit our avionics switch as well as our generator to make sure we don't drain our battery here. And let's see, we've got pitot heat, landing lights, fuel pump, an in-op switch. I have no idea why there's an inoperative switch here, but we'll leave that be. And then, of course, there's this switch here, pre-rotate. Now, that's going to come into play once we get to the runway, and we're going to be taking off to the north today, and then we're going to make a U-ey and head to the south to our destination. Speaking of which, our destination is not in the G1000. So here's what we're going to do. We've got our nifty little X-pad here, and I am going to show the map. There we go, and we are right here, Foxtrot Sierra Papa Papa. We are going to be going out to the east roughly around where this helipad is, X-Ray Hotel Foxtrot Sierra Lima Delta. And then we're going to be heading south to this island here. This is Fregate Island, Foxtrot Sierra Sierra Foxtrot. And the airport is just off to the northeastern side of the island. So pretty short trip. And for the next video, we will start off at Fregate Island and we'll head to the main airport over in Seychelles, Seychelles International Airport. But that's for another video. This is just to kind of give you an idea as to where we're heading since, as I stated, the GPS is not in there. Sorry about my avatar popping up. It's actually on this little button right here. So we technically do have avatar and we could use things like the manual and whatnot, but we're going to forego that right now. All right, let me put this somewhere where it's kind of out of the way. Okay, and let's check our engine. We should be idling around 1,000. That's pretty much standard, so we'll keep that there. We'll make sure that everything is looking good. Our EGT does seem to be a little bit high and also seems to be rising. So we're gonna get moving before it gets a little too hot. Let me turn our instrument lights up. We don't really need them because it's daytime, but you know me. I like to do stuff like that. All right, so we are going to be taxiing to the runway. Now, one very important thing that I need to mention, this aircraft uses differential braking. The nose wheel is free castering, which means there is no steering and there is no braking on that wheel. However, the two main gear, that's what we're going to be using to steer the aircraft. So we're going to use our rudder pedals for that. Let's go ahead and get our parking brakes off. Okay. And now that we've got some good forward momentum here, we'll kind of swing it to the right a little bit. Now, I have heard that they have made changes to the way that steering and brakes work in X-Plane. However, I have not changed any of my settings just yet, so my steering might be a little bit sensitive. We'll just have to deal with it. But we are almost at the hold short, so let me hit the brakes here really quick. Make sure we're not steering out of control. All right, right here is good. Okay, and while we are held here, we'll go ahead and get our landing lights on, our pitot heat on. We will also need our fuel pump on. We'll turn that off once we go airborne. We'll set our altimeter. It's 29.94 today, and it looks like that's already set. We will need to set our cruise altitude. We're not going very high today. We're only going to set it to about 2,000 feet above sea level. And our heading, we are probably going to need to change once we go airborne. So for the time being, I will leave it as is, and we can engage the autopilot a little bit later on. All right, let's do a quick check outside, make sure everything looks good, and then we'll go flying. Okay, everything looks good, so we're pretty much set to go, and I love those stubby little wings there. That is just too cool. I can't imagine that generates nearly as much lift as the rotor, but hey, you know what? I'll take all the help I can get, especially in an experimental aircraft such as this. This is the kind of thing that I would love to be able to fly in real life. So, Fraundorfer, if you're watching and you feel like throwing a guy a bone here, send me one of these, please. That would be awesome. I don't know how much this thing costs in real life, but I'm pretty sure I probably couldn't afford it. So it is what it is. All right, parking brakes are off, and we're going to take the active. As we're doing that, I'm going to explain to you what will happen. So as I mentioned before, we've got that pre-rotate switch. We are going to be hitting that, and that is going to allow our main rotor to get up to speed. We want it within the yellow arc, and I'll explain that in a moment. Once we get to that point, we are going to disengage the pre-rotate switch, come off the brakes, and we are going to haul butt down the runway, and hopefully we will have enough airspeed to take off. So that's the plan, man. And let me just bring us to a quick stop here. Okay, so we are going to be paying attention to this gauge right here. I'll zoom in a little bit. So you'll notice the inner dial says rotor, the outer says engine. So what we want to do is we want to keep our engine RPM in the green. I usually try to keep it like right around here, but we don't want to get much higher than that, because if we spin up the rotors too quickly, this thing will try to take off, and that'll end really badly, let me just tell you. So we keep our engine RPM there. We'll activate the pre-rotate switch, and we'll wait for the rotor speed to come up to the yellow arc. Once it is fully in the yellow arc, hopefully our engine RPM will not drop below this faded gold arc here. We'll disengage the switch, we'll come off the brakes, and we'll head out. Okay, so now that I've explained this thing thoroughly, let's put it into practice. Pre-rotate switch on. You'll notice the engine RPM changes. Watch that dial, watch that dial. Rotor RPM's coming up, and engine RPM is going down. Again, we do not want it to go below that gold line there. It's almost there. Okay, we can hear the rotor spinning up, so everything's looking good. We'll disengage pre-rotate. And now that we have that done, brakes off, throttles up. I did not trim this thing, so it should be at neutral trim, but it should take off pretty quickly. Right about there. It basically just lifts itself off of the ground. It's absolutely impressive. So let's go ahead and trim ourselves down a little bit here, so that way we're not losing too much airspeed and coming back to Earth. All right, we will keep everything as it is. You will notice everything is in the green. Rotor RPM is definitely green. Engine RPM is definitely green. And we are slowly but surely gaining altitude. Now the speed, since this is a German contraption, everything's metric, except of course our altimeter. We always like our altimeter to be in feet. But you can see we are just shy of about 100 kilometers per hour. So pretty cool stuff. Of course, the G1000 gives us conventional knots and so on. G1000 was added in there basically because it's the default G1000 for X-Plane. We can live with it, though. We can definitely live with it. All right, now that we've got a good altitude, let's get our nose gear up. And that is important to note. The gear that's on the wings do not come up. Only the nose gear comes up. And now that we've got that done, we are probably going to want to get our autopilot on. So before I do that, let me set up our heading hold. So we're gonna have it in that direction there. And we will make sure that we're gaining enough altitude. Yep, 1,000 feet per minute. We'll bring that down a little bit to about 700 feet per minute, thereabouts. Autopilot is now on. Let's get our heading hold. Heading hold is now on. And as we pass over the tip of the island, just past that little golf course that I showed you the last time, we are going to be heading towards that island over there. So let's adjust our heading really quick. I think that is pretty much a 90-degree turn, so we'll do that. There we go. All right, so once we reach 2,000 feet, everything should level itself off. You can see that it's already begun that process, so we're pretty much there. We'll kill our landing lights while we're at it. And we can also turn off the fuel pump. I haven't really noticed much of a fuel flow difference with the fuel pump on or off. It seems to be roughly around the same amount, but you know, that's something that I can live with, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. Okay, but other than that, we are pretty much set to go. So let's pull the power back just a touch here. Right about there should be good. There's no prop pitch or anything that I could find in this thing. It's very straightforward and very, very easy to use. It's almost a no-brainer, really. All right, let's get this out of my way here. Put you up there until we need you. So here's the plan. We are going to be going to that island. We're going to hang a right. We're going to head over to that island over there. Then we're going to hang another right, and we're going to go south towards our destination. So since we're getting kind of close to this island now, let me go ahead and make our changes. say we should be about 120 degrees-ish. We'll see how that maps out. So far so good. Might need to give it a little bit more, but I think we will be okay. Yep, we are okay. Awesome. Now, since everything is pretty much set to go, let's take a quick look outside for our nifty little cinematic angles, and then we'll come back in and continue talking about this bird and especially this scenery. So we are just passing the rest of Praslin there, so you can see that in our rear view. And we're heading over towards this island. Now, I gotta confess, folks, even though I've been flying around these islands pretty much since this scenery was released, I still don't know all the names of all the various islands. So you'll have to forgive me. I just know that there's so much to see, and that's one thing that I can't stress enough about this scenery package. There are a lot of islands that you can land your aircraft on, and by aircraft I mean helicopter or regular aircraft like GA, or even the airliners. Of course, there's a couple of airports that are actually big enough to bring in an airliner. We just left one, and then of course the other one is the international airport. So yeah, if you have not yet picked up this scenery, I would highly recommend it as one of the best ones that I have seen thus far for X-Plane. Okay, so since we're closing in on our island here, we need to figure out which direction to go. Okay, where is Frigate? Or Frigate, there it is. Okay, that looks to be a heading of 180, 170, about 160. So let's quickly adjust our heading bug. We want 160. There we go. Okay, so that should get us in the correct direction. So we're heading out that way. And afterwards, we'll zoom in just to make sure that everything is kosher. Yep, looks like we're pointed directly for the island, actually a little bit to the right of the island, which is fine considering where the airport is. That's where I want to be, so that way I can come around and do my base leg turn and everything and come in. All right, but let's see how we're doing with the aircraft itself. So our RPMs are looking good, everything's in the green. Our EGT, I remember that was an issue before, so we'll just kind of zoom in and check that. Not too shabby, 825 degrees, so yeah, we're good. Oil pressure's looking good, oil temperature's looking good, vacuum is looking good. We've still got plenty of gas. This thing will sip gas all day long, so we're definitely doing good there. I may want to bring our RPMs down to a nice even 2,000, so I'm slightly pulling the throttle back. Right about there should be good. And what does that net us as far as airspeed? Roughly about 92 knots or 170 kilometers per hour. I'd say we are doing pretty good in the old Fraundorfer here. Okay, excellent. I gotta say, I am pretty impressed with this aircraft. Although, truth be told, I am easily excited by things that are unconventional, unusual, and that's kind of part of the reason why this channel has really come into being. You may notice I don't fly airliners or any of that kind of stuff. It's just too commonplace for me. I like the unusual aircraft, and I like pointing out some of the more interesting things that honestly most people won't even show you. This one definitely ranks up there. As I stated earlier, this is the kind of thing I would love to fly in real life. So don't know if I'll ever get that opportunity, but if I ever do, yeah, you can be sure I'll be making a video of that as well. All right, I think everything is pretty stable. So once again, we're going to go back to the outside view for some cinematics. And when we come back, we should be just about at top of descent to come into Fregate Island. All right, so off in the distance, you can see Fregate Island. You can't yet see our airport. I'll need to use our magic binoculars here to zoom in a little. So it is off to the left side. You can probably see where the beach is. It's literally right next to the beach. So that's where we're going to be coming in. We're close enough now that we can begin our top of descent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set our altimeter to 1,000 feet. I'm pretty sure that's lower than I should be, but I can live with that. And we will set our vertical speed and nose down by about, let's go with 300 feet per minute descent. That should be fine. And we will need to pull our power back a little bit just to make sure that we are not overspeeding. So let's bring that back a touch. I think about 1900 should be good for descent. Of course, remember, with this thing being brand new, I don't have an owner's manual for it. I don't have any of the hard figures that you should be shooting for when flying this thing. I'm pretty much just guesstimating this and hoping that I'm correct. So far, we seem to be doing a pretty good job. We haven't yet crashed. I would knock on wood, but since I'm in VR, I can't see any wood in this aircraft, so there's nothing to knock on. But just to give you an idea of the plan, we're going to fly around the right-hand side of this island. That will be the western side of the island. And then we're going to make our turn to the left, so a left base and then left to final. There is no ATC at this airport, but typically in X-Plane, I don't really use ATC anyway, so even if there was, we probably wouldn't be calling out. But with that having been said, I'm pretty sure we will manage to bring this bird home. It is really, really easy to fly. If you're looking for something unconventional, yet very user-friendly, while I would highly recommend that you look through the manual for this thing, I think anybody can pick this thing up and fly it with relative ease. Might even be able to get Sergio interested, since it does, after all, have a rotor on top there, even if it appears to be fixed. All right, let's get our landing lights on, and we'll also get our fuel pump on. Now, notice what I was saying earlier, fuel flow 5.3. If we turn the fuel pump on, it does not necessarily increase our fuel flow. It's still 5.3. Not quite sure if that is intended or if that is a bug, but habits are habits. So we've got our fuel pump on. We're good to go. That is pretty much all we will need to do to get ourselves up to speed. And as soon as we hit 1,000, what I will do is pretty much take the autopilot off and we will hand fly this puppy in. Now, I do have one minor complaint with this scenery that I've noticed. On the grass airports, maps to explain if you are watching, I notice on the grass airports that everything looks dark green until you get a little bit closer. And we're going to notice that when we're coming into land. You'll notice that you can't really tell what the runway is because of the fact that everything renders as dark green grass until we get a little bit closer, and then it kind of fades into view, so to speak. So that is a minor complaint. Actually, we'll just call it feedback because it's not really a complaint. I still kind of know where the airport is, so I can definitely land there. It's just one of those things that I would kind of like to see you fix. All right, but since we are just past the island, let's go ahead and get our gear down. And we'll watch our airspeed bleed off. There is a lot of airspeed before the gear cannot be extended, so we're well within our gear range, and we're looking pretty good there. Everything is pretty stable, so we are going to come off of the autopilot. We'll go to the outside view really quick as we make our turn to base. All right, autopilot is now off, and here we go outside. Okay, we are on base and we can start slowing down a little bit to bring her in. Let me just do a quick check, make sure everything's looking kosher. Of key importance is going to be that rotor RPM. We do not want it to drop below the yellow mark, otherwise we are falling out of the sky and, well, let's just say this video will end really badly. But we are descending at a very nice rate, about 400 feet per minute, which is absolutely fine by me. And from the looks of it, we're going to need to skirt over those rocks to get to the runway. So let's continue bringing her down. We're just about at 600 feet, so we need to kind of watch ourselves. I'm actually going to, whoops, wrong button. I'm actually going to trim us up here so that we can lose some airspeed. All right, so take a look directly ahead. You will see what I'm talking about with this scenery. The grass runway is currently just a dark green shade, but you'll notice as we get a little bit closer, the area that we're supposed to be aiming for will start appearing, like magically. That's kind of weird. Not really sure how I feel about that, and I keep hitting the wrong button when I meant to trim. I have slightly different settings for Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I need to adjust accordingly. But yeah, we're looking good. We are looking good. Look at those houses. Really is an awesome scenery. If that's like the only thing that I can find to complain about with this scenery, I would say Maps to Explain is doing a stupendous job. Now, I have heard rumors. I really shouldn't say they're rumors because, well, they started it, but they are working on another island package. We don't know anything yet, but when I find out, I will let you know. In the meantime, let's flare, drop power, and we are down. Okay. Rotor RPM is still a little high, so we're going to come off the controls and basically just try to keep ourselves in a straight line. We'll wait for the rotor RPM to go below the yellow before we actually make any kind of turns or anything. So there we go. Looking Good. All right. Fuel pump, we'll turn you off. Pitot heat, we will turn you off. And we're going to make our turn here. Since we're on grass, it is a little bit more difficult to steer, but that's pretty much normal. We would kind of expect that with an aircraft such as this. Not as easy as if you were on asphalt or concrete. Same for other aircraft that are made by VSkyLabs, such as the Rutan Long EZ, which happens to be my absolute favorite. I'm dropping that little hint there because if you're also watching the Microsoft Flight Simulator series, that's going to be the next aircraft that I'm going to be showing you. So we'll discuss that once we get into that episode, because there are some fundamental differences that I will need to make you aware of. And that's all I'll say about that. But, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fregate Island. And as you can see, there is not much to this area. It is quiet. It is picturesque. Absolutely love the heck out of it. And you can see there's some golf carts over there behind the little, I'm assuming, terminal building. I don't quite know, but, you know, we'll take it. We will take it. We can open the door, so be advised it's going to get a little loud. Hopefully the door will not hit the rotor. Perfect, just shy. I love it. All right, and this is how we are going to taxi in. So just to remind you what you have been seeing, the aircraft that we have been using today is from VSkyLabs. This is one of their newest models. This is the Fraundorfer Tensor 600X. Beautiful little autogyro. Definitely a unique bird and one that I would absolutely highly recommend. Parking brakes on. The scenery that we've been showing off for the last video, for this video, and most likely for the next video has been maps to X-Plane Seychelles Islands in concert with Aerosoft. That is where you can get this scenery. I believe you can also get it from xplane.org. The links, of course, will be in the video description below, as always. Let's go ahead and power down, and we will consider this episode done. So we'll put our throttle to idle. Get our landing lights off. And to power down this aircraft, it is super ridiculously easy. Let me just get our avionics off first. And all you need to do is this. Turn off both ignitions. That's it. That is absolutely it. We are done. Power is off. All right, Georgette. I hope you enjoyed yourself, because I sure as heck did. So I'm going to go outside here after I put the rotor brake on, and we will say goodbye. Alrighty, folks. So thank you, as always, for watching. This has been BelGeode. I have been flying in X-Plane 11, and just so you're aware, this is X-Plane 11.50 RC3, featuring VULKAN API. Now, if none of that makes any sense to you, just understand that I'm getting far better FPS, especially in VR. That's the main thing that VULKAN brings to the table, and it's also the framework that X-Plane needs in order to push this sim ahead. And by pushing it ahead, I mean adding things like atmospherics similar to Microsoft Flight Simulator and any other good stuff that X-Plane deems is worthy to update this sim, such as terrain textures and whatnot. All right, that will do it for me. So on behalf of Georgette and myself, I thank you for watching. If you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. That way you'll get updates as to whenever I put up any further X-Plane videos or DCS or Microsoft Flight Simulator or Prepared or anything else that I choose to fly that week. Alrighty, folks. I will talk to you soon, and I hope you all have a great evening. Ciao!